Hey Fragrance family, I'm David and I'm a fragrance bro. Today I have a video that has been a long time coming. I wanted to wait a little while to release this video until some of the thoughts and perceptions of Dua had passed. I think a lot of what has been going on with Dua is very mixed, and I can understand why on a couple of different counts. So I wanted to go and just give you my take on Dua. Now, I've had lots of fragrances for them. All the fragrances that I'll be talking about today were given to me. So just take that into account. But in turn, I gave those away for Christmas. So someone else has all of the fragrances that I'm about to mention. Now, they have a ton of fragrances and I can't review them all, but I'll talk about the ones that I have, which are some of their more popular ones. And I'll go into my thoughts about the house as a whole. Now, as you can see, I have a little new set going on here. So I'll be doing some more videos like this in the future. All right, so Dua. Dua is owned by Mobster. He is a self-professed perfumer of this line. And a lot of his fragrances are either interpretations of popular fragrances or they're clones of popular fragrances. And he has some originals of his own. Some of them are blends of two different popular fragrances, which I think is kind of cool. And some of them are just unique riffs of a fragrance that has maybe a note that's accentuated or added onto it. Now, recently they've gotten a lot of praise and a lot of flack from some people in the community. And I can see both sides. I think the praise, is worthy here on one aspect because a lot of the fragrances that he produces are good. The flack maybe is also warranted as well. I don't know a lot of the business practices going on. I don't participate in a company because I agree with their ethics. I participate in a company, I buy their products because I like the product. I think to otherwise assert that you have to agree with everything a person does, whether it's ethical, moral, or whatever, is stupid. This is a product, this is a perfume. I don't have to agree with the person. It would be absolutely impossible to agree with everything a company or person does or says in order to enjoy the products. Now, a lot of what has been said about Dua fragrances in the negative has been that they are buying something really cheap and they're just rebottling it. Another criticism by Dua is that they are saying they are master perfumers when they're not. I personally don't care if someone is buying something really cheap and then just repackaging it and selling it a different way. People do that all the time. Me as a buyer, I'm just gonna vote with my wallet, and I encourage you to do the same. If you don't want to buy something that is just repackaged from someone else, then just don't buy it. Now, a lot of the praise for Dua, I think, is also warranted because a lot of what they do is clones and a lot of what they have are inexpensive compared to the real thing, and a lot of what they sell is very close to the original. Now, I've met Masum Raza also. As a disclosure, I have met and I've had dinner with him. He came to my town and we just had dinner one night and I thought that was really cool of him. Now, I bring the story up about how we met because whenever I met Masum, he smelled really nice. And in the back of my mind, I thought, I recognize the smell. I don't know what it is. So I told him, I said, I think you smell really good. He said, oh yeah, it's just something I'm working on. Later that night, after everything was said and done, the lights clicked. It smelled like Italian leather by Memo Paris. Now, later on, he came out with a fragrance, I forgot what it was called, Queer Milano, I think is what it's called, which was a clone of Memo Paris's Italian leather. And I have to tell you, I've experienced both of them and they are exact. They are exact. I don't know what he does. I don't know if he purposely buys something overseas that's already a clone and then repackages it. I don't know if he makes it and he's a skilled perfumer. I don't know if he hires a perfumer to do it for him. I don't know. Whatever is going on, he's selling a product for a good price and he's doing it very well, I think. And a lot of the fragrances that I think he makes are pretty good. Now, my personal feelings, I do not like clone houses, and I told this to his face. I do not like the fact that someone is going out there to kind of undercut another company making the exact same product. I don't really like that. I understand everyone has a different set of opinions about that. Now, this may be splitting hairs, but I will say that I believe that there is a difference, to me anyway, of a fragrance house making a fragrance that smells similar to another popular fragrance than to a clone house directly trying to imitate a particular fragrance. I think that is two different types of intense there. So maybe there is a slight difference there. I think that to me is where I fall in the whole debate of clone houses. All that being said, TLDR, let's get to the fragrances themselves. Let's start with the Mobster. So the Mobster is a spicy whiskey and tobacco scent, and I smell a lot of cinnamon. It's very boozy. The cinnamon always reminds me of tobacco vanille, though it doesn't smell like tobacco vanille. This really makes me want to go try tobacco oud again. I've heard this is compared to tobacco oud. It's been quite a while since I've tried tobacco oud, and I remember thinking it was okay. And that's exactly what I think of the Mobster. The Mobster is one of Dua's more popular fragrances. I think it's okay. The Mobster in Sin City is a flanker of the Mobster, and it is very much like the original Mobster, except with a lot of rum added. And that completely changes the feeling of the fragrance. If you replace the whiskey with rum, it changes a lot of the feeling into a more casual type of fragrance. An Evening with the Mobster is yet another flanker of the Mobster, and it loses the spice, but adds a ton more booziness. It's a lot like the original again. There's definitely a similarity there, but way more boozy. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was suggested by Dan, my Mickers. He had some suggestions when he reviewed the Mobster, and Mossum actually did this. I think that's really cool. Cannabliss by the Mobster is another flanker of the Mobster. I guess he's not immune to the flankeritis that a lot of companies have. This one adds a lot of a cannabis note on there with sandalwood. It's very dark and resinous. It does not have any kind of skunky odor. And if you like the cannabis type of smell, I think you'll really like it. I'm not a big fan of cannabis, so it's not my thing, but I will say that it is very nice. Imperial Pastèque is an exact clone of Millésime Imperial. And when I say exact, it is exact. I'm not a huge fan of Millésime Imperial, but it is, I mean, I would never be able to tell the difference. That's really cool because it lasts a lot longer than the Millésime Imperial that I've tried, and this costs less. I think this is a much better value to get than Creed, even if it's just for the increase in performance. Sweet Tobacco is another fragrance that is inspired by tobacco vanille. It's not exact. It is a little different. It does have a lot of the same notes that tobacco vanille has. It hits a lot of the same beats. So it has cinnamon, it has vanilla, it has a slightly boozy quality to it, but it has a lot more booze and somewhat less cinnamon, and it's not quite as dark and thick as tobacco vanille is. And ultimately, I think tobacco vanille is just better. Honey Havane is a fragrance that is inspired by a mixture of Pure Havane by Thierry Mugler and Honey Oud by Montal. And I think it's a pretty good mix. You have the sweetness of Pure Havane mixed with the woodiness of Honey Oud. Overall, it's really good. It does really remind me somewhat at sometimes more of Pure Havane and some other times more of Honey Oud. If you like those fragrances, definitely check this out. Now, Royal Elixir is my final fragrance that I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm not really sure if this is a clone or an original or inspired by another fragrance, but this is a fresh violet leaf fragrance. It smells nice and clean, but a little bit generic. I'm not exactly sure, but this kind of reminds me a little bit of L'Homme Libre by Yves Saint Laurent. I don't necessarily know if it's an exact clone or not. It'd be silly if it were an exact clone because this would be more. But it has that kind of feel to it. Overall, this is not a house that I would personally get into and buy a lot of fragrances, but that's just me. I was talking to a friend recently and he said it's a funny thing about clone houses. They get demonized for what they do, and if there's a fragrance house that does the exact same thing, they won't. I think that's a fair point. And maybe you're on one side, I'm clearly apparently on the other side. Their fragrances vary in price. They're around the $40 to $50 mark for most of their fragrances for a 30 ml. And I think overall that's a fair value for what you're getting. You get a lot more value if you're buying a fragrance that is a clear clone of a fragrance, especially if it's discontinued. Then you're getting immense value. Now clearly this is a house that is divisive and people have a lot of contrasting opinions, but I think it's definitely something you should go check out. And if you don't mind buying from a clone house, I say go for it. If you do, it's going to be silly to recommend this to you. So, but overall, I think it's pretty good. So that's all I have. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. I'll love you for it. I'll see you next time. I'm Dave with the Fragrance Bros. Bye. Thanks everyone for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to check out my other channel, Beast Made Reviews, where me and a friend review high quality products for men.